I loved my secret life, where my accomplishments stood separate from my powerful husband's name. But one public act of humiliation from my boss didn't just burst my bubble, it unleashed a storm that would shatter his world and forge mine. I always liked the anonymity of being Anna Reed. It was simple, clean. At Apex Innovations, I wasn't the wife of a man whose name could move markets. I was just the junior graphic designer who was a little too eager and worked a little too late. I loved it. I loved earning my own paycheck, no matter how small it was compared to the rounding error in my husband Daniel's daily interest earnings. I loved seeing my own ideas come to life, untainted by the assumption that they were only given a chance because of who I was married to. No one at my office knew. To them, my husband was just Dan, a vaguely defined consultant who traveled a lot. It was my perfect little secret, my bubble of normalcy in a life that was anything but. The bubble was about to burst in the most spectacular way imaginable. The problem, as it often was my boss, Marcus Thorne. Marcus was a man whose ego was so large it needed its own zip code. He was a classic corporate predator. All slicked-back hair, expensive but ill-fitting suits, and a smile that never quite reached his cold, calculating eyes. He thrived on intimidation and had a special talent for taking credit for his team's work. My work, specifically. For the past 6 months, he'd made it his personal mission to make my life a living hell, and I'd just taken it, believing that paying your dues was part of the process. Today was supposed to be my breakthrough. We were pitching to Viridian Dynamics, a tech giant looking to rebrand. A contract with them would be monumental for our firm, and my designs were the cornerstone of the entire presentation. I had poured my soul into this project, working countless sleepless nights to create something I was truly proud of. For the first time, Marcus hadn't been able to completely sideline me. The initial concepts he'd tried to steal and pass off as his own had been rejected by the preliminary review team. They'd specifically requested to hear from the original designer. That was me. I stood at the head of the polished mahogany conference table, the Viridian executives looking on with impassive faces. My heart was a jackhammer against my ribs, but my voice was steady as I walked them through my campaign concepts. I could feel Marcus's eyes burning into the side of my head. He was leaning back in his chair, swirling a massive cup of dark soda, the picture of forced nonchalance. As I clicked to my final, most innovative slide, I saw a flicker of genuine interest in the lead executive's eyes. A small smile touched my lips. I was doing it. I was actually winning them over. And so, I concluded, my voice filled with a passion I couldn't contain. We're not just selling a product, we're selling a future designed to be seamless, intuitive, and bold. A murmur of approval went through the Viridian team. The lead executive, a stern-looking man named Mr. Harrington, nodded slowly. Impressive, Ms. Reed. Very impressive. That was all it took. That one sliver of praise directed at me and not him. Marcus pushed his chair back with a loud scrape, standing up as if to take control. Well, what Anna is trying to say, he began, his voice dripping with condescension, is that my team's vision is... He took a dramatic step forward, gesturing grandly with the hand holding his drink. It happened in slow motion. The exaggerated swing of his arm, the lip of the oversized cup catching on the corner of the projector stand, the dark, fizzy arc of cola flying through the air. It felt like an eternity before the icy, sticky liquid hit me. It wasn't just a spill, it was a deluge. It soaked the front of my white silk blouse, turning it a disgusting, transparent brown. It splashed across my face and dripped from my hair onto my presentation notes, smearing the ink. The room fell into a silence so thick you could choke on it. All I could hear was the fizzing of the soda as it soaked into my clothes and the frantic beating of my own heart. I stood there, frozen in shock and utter humiliation, dripping in front of the most important clients of my career. Marcus looked down at the empty cup in his hand, and then at me. A mask of theatrical apology spread across his face, but his eyes were gleaming with triumph. "Oh my goodness," he said, his voice oozing false concern. "Clumsy me. I am so sorry, Anna. You know how passionate I get." He then turned to the clients with a chuckle. "Looks like she's not quite as polished as her designs, is she?" No one moved. No one offered me a napkin. My own teammates just stared at their shoes, terrified of being associated with me in that moment. The humiliation was a physical thing, a hot flush that crawled up my neck and burned behind my eyes. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to scream. Instead, I took a steadying breath, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. I reached into my blazer pocket, my fingers fumbling for my phone. My hand was shaking, not with fear anymore, but with a cold, clear rage. Under the table, out of sight, I opened a text message. My thumb hovered over the keyboard for a second before I typed a simple, 7-word message to my husband. There's a problem at my office. Come now. I hit send. As I slid the phone back into my pocket, a strange thing happened. Across the table, the lead executive, Mr. Harrington, discreetly glanced down at his own phone, which had just vibrated on the polished wood. I saw his eyes widen slightly as he read the screen. He then slowly lifted his gaze, not to Marcus, who was still smirking, but directly to me. The impassive corporate mask was gone, replaced by a look of dawning, abject terror. Marcus, completely oblivious to the seismic shift in the room's atmosphere, tried to press his advantage. Well, as I was saying, before the, spill, he said, gesturing vaguely at my ruined clothes. The core concept is really about synergy, something a junior designer can't quite grasp. He droned on, but his words were just hollow noise. No one was listening. The Viridian executives weren't looking at him. They were looking at Mr. Harrington, who in turn was staring at me as if I'd just morphed into a fire-breathing dragon. My own colleagues, sensing the change but not understanding it, shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The air crackled with a tension so foreign and thick it felt like a static charge. Then the heavy oak doors of the conference room swung open with a decisive thud that silenced Marcus mid-sentence. Every head turned. Standing in the doorway was my husband, Daniel. To the world he was Daniel Sterling, a titan of industry whose face graced the covers of business magazines. To me, he was just my Daniel. But the man standing there now wasn't the one who made me laugh with terrible puns over breakfast. This was the Daniel Sterling who dismantled corporations with a single phone call. He was flanked by his chief of staff, a formidable woman named Evelyn, who held a tablet like a weapon. Daniel's eyes, the color of a stormy sea, swept the room for a fraction of a second before they landed on me. He saw the dark stain on my blouse, the drip of soda still clinging to my chin, the stark humiliation I was trying so desperately to hide. I saw the warmth in his eyes instantly freeze over, replaced by something so cold and dangerous it made the hair on my arms stand up. He moved without a word, his expensive Italian shoes making no sound on the thick carpet. He walked past the stunned Viridian executives, past my cowering colleagues, and past a suddenly confused-looking Marcus. He walked right to me. He didn't say anything at first. He simply reached out and gently brushed a stray, sticky strand of hair from my cheek. Then, he shrugged off his tailored suit jacket, a deep charcoal gray that probably cost more than my car, and draped it over my shoulders. The warmth of the wool and the familiar scent of his cologne enveloped me, a protective shield against the prying eyes of the room. He leaned in and pressed a soft kiss to my forehead. "I'm here," he murmured, his voice so low only I could hear it. "It's okay." The sheer relief was so overwhelming I thought my knees might buckle. I just gave him the slightest nod, unable to trust my own voice. It was Marcus who finally broke the spell, his arrogance overriding his non-existent sense of self-preservation. "I'm sorry, who the hell are you?" he demanded, puffing out his chest. "This is a private, high-level meeting. Security." Daniel didn't even turn to look at him. He straightened up to his full height, his gaze still on me, but his voice now projected across the room, clear and cutting as glass. "There's no need for security." It was Mr. Harrington who finally found his voice, though it came out as a strangled squeak. Mr. Thorne," he stammered, scrambling to his feet so fast he nearly knocked his chair over. That's Daniel Sterling." The name hung in the air like a death sentence. I watched the blood drain from Marcus's face. His jaw went slack, his eyes wide with a dawning, panicked horror. He looked from Daniel to me and back to Daniel, the horrifying equation clicking into place in his brain. My consultant husband Dan was Daniel Sterling, and he had just deliberately humiliated Daniel Sterling's wife. Daniel finally turned, his movements slow and deliberate. He didn't look at Marcus yet. His chillingly calm gaze fell upon Mr. Harrington. Our two companies have a dozen active contracts, do we not, Mr. Harrington? Harrington swallowed hard, nodding frantically. Yes, Mr. Sterling, of course. You're our most valued partner. Consider them all terminated, Daniel said flatly. Evelyn will have the paperwork sent over within the hour. Send the penalty fees to my office. We'll be happy to pay them. He was burning a fortune, millions of dollars in termination fees, without a second thought, just to sever a tie with a company that had witnessed my humiliation. Then, at long last, his icy eyes slid over to my boss. Marcus looked like he was about to vomit. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. I want your name, Daniel said, his voice dropping to a low, menacing whisper that was somehow more terrifying than a shout. And I want the name of every single person on your team who sat here and watched this happen. You have 60 seconds before I buy this entire firm and liquidate it for parts. The 60 seconds Daniel gave Marcus might as well have been a lifetime. The silence in the room was absolute, broken only by Marcus's ragged, panicked breathing. My teammates, who had so studiously avoided my gaze moments before, were now staring at me with a mixture of terror and disbelief. They were trapped, their careers hanging by the thread of their complicity. One by one, their eyes dropped to the floor in shame. Mr. Harrington and the Viridian team were already discreetly packing their briefcases, trying to become invisible, to escape the blast radius of Daniel's fury. Marcus's bravado had completely evaporated, replaced by a desperate, pathetic groveling. Mr. Sterling, sir, I had no idea. It was an accident. A joke. I'm so sorry, Anna. We can fix this. He turned to me, his eyes pleading, but he couldn't have looked more repulsive. Daniel didn't even acknowledge him. He simply looked at Evelyn, his chief of staff. Evelyn, get the names. Evelyn, ever the epitome of efficiency, didn't need to ask. Her fingers were already flying across her tablet. Already on it, Daniel. Marcus Thorne, head of creative. Team members present, Sarah Chen, Leo Petrov, and Jessica Riley. All have been with the firm between 2 and 4 years. Performance reviews are average. Each name was a nail in a coffin. Sarah, Leo, and Jessica visibly flinched, their faces pale. They had sat there, mute and cowardly, as I was degraded. Now their silence was their undoing. Daniel nodded slowly, a dark satisfaction in his expression. He turned his attention back to Marcus, who was visibly trembling now. Mr. Thorne, Daniel said, his voice deceptively calm. Let me explain something to you. You didn't just spill soda on my wife. You fostered an environment where you believed that bullying and public humiliation were acceptable tools for management. You built a team of people too scared to show a basic human decency. That kind of culture, that kind of weakness, is a contagion. And I specialize in quarantines. He took a step closer, and Marcus actually took a step back, bumping into the conference table. You will be terminated for cause, effective immediately, Daniel stated, not as a suggestion, but as an unchangeable fact. A severance package is not applicable. I will also be speaking with the board of this company, a board on which, as of 5 minutes ago, I hold a controlling interest thanks to a few calls made on my way here. I'll be recommending they review your entire history for similar incidents. I suspect they'll find a pattern. He paused, letting the words sink in. Your name will be blacklisted in this industry. You won't be able to get a job designing a takeout menu in Antarctica. He then turned his gaze to my 3 colleagues. They looked like they were facing a firing squad. As for the 3 of you, he said, his voice laced with contempt, you watched. You did nothing. In my world, that's the same as holding the cup. You're fired. Your access cards have already been deactivated. Security will escort you out. As if on cue, 2 stern-looking security guards appeared at the conference room door. The finality of it all was breathtaking. 4 careers ended in less than 10 minutes. Marcus just stood there, his mouth agape, a broken man. The others began gathering their things with shaking hands, avoiding everyone's eyes. Daniel put his arm around me, his jacket still draped over my shoulders like a king's mantle. He guided me toward the door, past the wreckage of my former professional life. As we reached the doorway, I stopped and looked back. I looked at Marcus, his slicked back hair now looking pathetic, his expensive suit looking like a costume. I looked at the smeared ink on my presentation notes, the last remnants of a dream I thought he had destroyed. But he hadn't destroyed it. He'd just rerouted it. "Daniel," I said softly, and he stopped, looking down at me with concern. "My designs. They were good." A small, genuine smile finally broke through his icy facade. It was the smile I loved. "Anna," he said, his voice warm and full of pride, "they weren't good. They were brilliant. Evelyn, contact Viridian Dynamics. Inform Mr. Harrington that Sterling Industries is founding a new in-house creative agency. Our first client will be them, and our new agency will be headed by its lead designer, Anna Reed." Evelyn smiled. "Consider it done." I stared at him, my heart swelling with a feeling so much bigger than just vindication. He wasn't just fixing a problem. He was building me a kingdom on the ashes of my humiliation. He saw my talent. He always had. And now he was giving me the one thing I'd always wanted, the chance to build something of my own, on my own terms, with no one's name attached but my own. As we walked out of that conference room, leaving the shambles of Apex Innovations behind, I realized my little bubble of normalcy hadn't burst. It had just expanded to a size I never could have imagined. I was still Anna Reed. But now, everyone was going to know my name.